watching the 4 o'clock news, Eyewitness News at 7. It mentions something here that happened in Bayside. Didn't hear about it until I looked on the evening news today. It happened a few days ago. Apparently, well, and I actually, believe it or not, know one person from the neighborhood that I recognize. There's a whole village full. I don't know how many residents are in Bayside, but I recognize the one. I don't know what Airbnb is. I don't know how this started. It seems to have some connection with the banks and foreclosures. Again, I'm not in that. I used to do short sales, but there were 2 lawyers and a lawyer for the title company, and then there was always a bank attorney. So there was always 4 lawyers involved in a very strategic network that was held outside of the parties involved, being the average citizens or the average people, the one losing the home, the one buying the home. So that's interesting, and that's truthful. I don't know much about Foreclosure Network. I don't know how, in the onset of this .com era, the biogenics era, the spike in prices, the Ponzi scheme of taking away homes. I don't know what land trusts have been up to. I don't even know if trust in land even exists anymore. I have very little belief. I heard earlier that this section they referenced Russia has a parliament and a Duma. I suppose that would be our version, would be Senate or Congress. I really don't know. But it's like a junior seat to the parliament. I'm like, again, things they don't teach, except I hear vocabulary on the news trying to piece it all together in some greater puzzle. But now this Airbnb, is that tied into the aviation and some class action lawsuit? Because why are you letting criminals just fly and resettle anywhere? I'm watching New York, and there's graffiti. There's graffiti in my local area, but not nearly as bad as some of the other areas. But anyway, in the local area, there was a shooting just outside of a house that had gone into foreclosure. And then they mentioned something about the courts. There's such a backlog on foreclosures. They didn't actually foreclosure it, but somehow there's some scam going on where they placed it on some Airbnb website. I don't know what that's about. But there's squatters there from out of state staying there. And then there was some kind of shooting. Again, there's a big ruckus outside. There was a shooting, and then there was a ruckus over the weekend. But it just seems like so many loopholes. And then there was a man on the microphone, or who was given the microphone. I don't know what his position was, but he said, in this whole unfolding situation, he said that the foreclosure company called him, and the only thing that they said was duck and cover, which is bizarre. What the heck? Isn't the mortgage company supposed to be the bank affiliation? Isn't that supposed to be of high efficacy? Between that and the drug companies, the synthetics, and then this marijuana craze, and all of the animals changing in some I saw earlier they at 12 o'clock news in Cuba they have this thing where the crabs come out of the forest and just fill up the roads. That's kind of what New York seems to look like in new population. Not necessarily from Cuba, just and then they said something about the Australian barrier reef is being there's a new section that's bleached. They made mention of that. And they said they were thinking about putting it on the endangered species list. Again, this teamwork is to make the dream work. Dream work is looking more like a nightmare. And I don't know where this team leadership and management piece is for land folks and folklore. So I'll play the piece. This is where it is at the moment, and this is the headline, Bullets Fly.
Is hurt and a child's car seat is struck. It happened on an otherwise peaceful street where neighbors say squatters are renting out a place on Airbnb. And good afternoon to you. I'm Lauren Glassberg in for Liz Cho.
I'm David Navarro. Neighbors tell us on that street they're fed up living in fear. They say the situation with squatters using an Airbnb is outrageous and it is putting them in danger.
Eyewitness News reporter Stacey Sager live in Bayside with how the company is responding. Stacey.
Well, Lauren, Airbnb says it is now taking action after we called them today. You know, this is normally a quiet neighborhood, 38th Avenue and 209th Street here in Bayside, but it wasn't so quiet over the weekend. 19 shots were fired outside this house, a house that's been a problem for years.
Guns ablaze, but no, this is not a war zone. It was Bayside, Queens over the weekend.
There's probably lots of violations in there. Shut this place down.
It is a home on the corner of...
That gentleman, by the way, is calling himself a senator, and the last name is, the sound of the last name is Lou. It's spelled differently than my father. I don't know if that's a problem, because I don't know how this title of senator, I don't know how one gets this title of senator. I mean, this morning I watched something called Pachinko. Is that what they're doing in New York? I'm just curious because we didn't get the memo. I know there's unrest in the American colonies. That memo I received from international community through the local school. And that there's some American revolting war going on. No idea what that has to pertain to because it's multifaceted, it looks like, but none of it is in an English that I can understand or overstate. And none of it seems to be in a timely fashion in order to prepare it's just, and at the same time, in parallel paradigm shift elsewhere, the NCAA is having a Peacock. Now, for Peabody, Sherman and Peabody, and Dexter's Laboratory, when it's via and cut, and 2 is zwei, not der. Der. There's these little microaggressions going on, and then there's the others. At what point do we mend fences? Just curious. Between the cosmo and the cosmological and the astros at Aristo. So anyway, this is the rest of the story.
38th Avenue and 209th Street, occupied by squatters for about 2 years now. They have out-of-state plates, and some don't even live here. They were just renting out the place on Airbnb. But residents angry about last weekend's shooting gathered on the block today to demand a solution. The former owner showed up, but he says he sold the place to the bank 4 years ago. The property in foreclosure ever since.
I have nothing to do with these people here, nor do I want them here. But I don't have a choice at this point.
The home is in poor shape, and inspectors from the New York City Department of Buildings were here today. But DOB says they can't vacate this property unless there's imminent danger. These bullets apparently not enough. They penetrated 2 cars on the block, one of them including a child's safety seat.
It's ridiculous. If this occurred sometime during the day when they were putting the child in, God knows.
This afternoon, a spokesperson at Airbnb telling Eyewitness News, "We take the situation very seriously and have suspended the listing and canceled reservations." As for the bank that currently holds the mortgage, residents say not much help from them. In fact, they called after last weekend's shooting and were stunned by the response.
This is the CEO. Duck and cover. That's what he told me.
Yeah, and you know what's happened with the pandemic is many foreclosure proceedings were really stalled in the court system. And the squatters, they know that, and they were making money off of this. Now, as for the shooting that happened here over the weekend, police say one person was shot in the stomach. It wasn't a resident, it was someone visiting this house. Residents are just hoping this ends before anyone gets killed. We're live in Bayside, Queens. I'm Stacey Sager, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Stacey, thank you. Mayor.
The other thing is, the last time I saw a Peacock reference that was not Peabody and Sherman, that I understood, it was of a man who is infatuated with a peacock elsewhere in the world with special headdress that I don't have a name for and I don't have a name of a people for. Same reference, however, of the man that tried poisoning me or wanted me to poison myself with radiological dye inside of an MRI machine. Same secular people. I don't know what they are. Again, I don't get a guidebook of every one of the sections of the theater that might be out to poison or kill me while there's multiple descent into some local area while everybody seems to think it's a peaceful arrangement. So there's, by the Taj Mahal, I've seen mention of anthropological mention of peacock and some obsession. Not quite sure in that neck of the wood how that might tie in with this. Again, the last character I saw roaming around with that secular that did not have a whatever would be a banker in the garrison of gross anatomy. So, again, that be a coded message as it is. He knows who he is. And that was, I don't remember the name of the bank, but that was out in Suffolk County. I don't know, it's shifting. I don't know, it's sliding. I mean, I see it everywhere. I don't know. I don't know what they've been up to. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.